Good morning, good morning. Happy Saturday. Do you know this is actually, we're celebrating, Oscar and I. I'm Tony Viner, he's Oscar D'Souza, and this is Property Avenue WA that we do each week. But it's our 21st birthday. So this today, don't mind the pun, but this is your key to all matters property in WA. Do you like it? Oscar, g'day, how was your week?
Mate, I've had a very big week. It's been a great week. Even though I'm trying my best to not look tired, I am pretty shattered from the week that I've had. But it's been a really, really good week all the same. What about you, mate?
Yeah.
What about you?
Look, my week's been, I drove up from Perth and there was lots of traffic still on the road, all going north and coming back from north with caravans and trailers and things on. But you know what's really been interesting this week? I've had phone calls from people from the East Coast who are being entertaining and looking at buying property, and they located me to assist them and asked for some direction because the processes in WA are different to that on the East Coast. And those people actually identified my name and number or our business, Champion Bay Settlements, via our Google. But more particularly what was intriguing is these people are, we read in the papers and I see, is it Damien Collins, the president of REWA? I know he made a reference with regard to interest being shown by the East Coast and, of course, expats deciding that lifestyles where we're going to go back to. So there's a range of things that we'll talk about today. But I can tell you firsthand, and we will get ourselves a couple of real estate agents on board over the next couple of weeks to get their thoughts in different areas. But I can tell you firsthand, just little old me, the inquiries I've had, and I spoke to a lovely young lady a couple of days ago from Victoria, and she sort of said, TV, we just over the lockdown situation, and she's identified WA as being a location not just to live today, but looking at her retirement plans. So it is real. It's not just what the papers are saying. It's not what just the real estate fraternity is saying. So it's very, very interesting. And I've certainly been pretty busy, but I don't think I've been quite as chaotic as you, but we're getting there.
TV, I don't know where you want to fit this in this morning's discussion, but I know it's on the tip of everyone's tongue. And just in the last 48 hours, we've had the position of the state government, our state government, revealed in terms of what's happening with the emergency period. So I don't know if you want to discuss this now or later, but for me, it's a very big issue, and it is a big issue for the real estate market on the back of what you just said, and that is we've got people in the eastern states that are actually in emergency periods and they're living it day to day, which, as we all know, is a far different world from what we have in WA at the moment, yet we've just extended the full emergency period so far as real estate's concerned for another 6 months. Where's the logic? Where's the logic in that
look, why not talk about it now? Because the fact is that we're hot to trot, and we know what we're about. We don't have a set agenda, so we can do whatever we want to do. And if those that want to know about Oscar's stats, that'll come up shortly. But yeah, that's a bit along the lines of what my if question is very interesting this morning. But that was one of the things that I raised, and I noticed you probably haven't had time this morning, knowing you and your lifestyle, and you would have gone for a walk this morning, 5:30 along the river. How was that this morning? Looking good? Looking good, was it?
Stunning. Absolutely, mate. It was absolutely stunning, and it's hard to get out of bed at 4:30 on a Saturday, especially on the back of a big week. But after you've got up on your feet and you've been through the first 2 minutes of that, and you get out there at 5:30, it is so worth it, mate. I really encourage everyone to do it. It's worth your time. It is stunning.
Not necessarily 4:30 in the morning, but yeah. See, I told you it was enough. But look, getting back to I'm a bit envious of you because I still enjoy going down there, not necessarily at 4:30, 5 o'clock, but I go 5:30, 6 along there for a run. And yeah, I'm with you. Well, some of our promo video are photos that I've taken with my phone when I've gone for a run down there along the river, when you go up towards past the Crown, towards the Polly Farmer, and then back the other way. So a lot of our photos you see on Property Avenue WA are just taken with my phone of the river and various places around. So it just goes to show how good WA is, and I intend to get a few photos of our country areas as well, because there's a lot to offer. But getting back to your question, in the paper this morning, there was in one of the letters to the editor, one of the opinions, and I've actually taken a copy of this, of that letter, was that someone was making reference to the fact that they, the real estate, and this is what was said, real estate is hurting. The real estate industry employs thousands of people, many thousands more, rely on the rental income from their investment properties. In many cases, it's their only income. No rental income, no food on the table. Both have been some of the worst collateral damage of the government's reaction to COVID. To extend the ban on residential evictions another 6 months until March 30 next year is lunacy. There's no guarantee there'll be a vaccine by then, so then what? A further 6-month extension of the ban? The tenants who can't pay are going to have to be dumped on the street sooner or later. What's the alternative? And adding to that, so that's just someone who's made a comment. That's not a real estate agent, from my understanding. That's a letter to the editor in the West Australian this morning, a very small section. The other part that interests me is that, and you'll be able to confirm this better than I, but the rental vacancy is something like, oh no, the not the rental vacancy, but the those that can't afford or having issues associated with this rental and COVID, it's like minimal.
That's right. Yeah.
It's minimal.
Yeah.
So yeah. Why are we putting a dampener on the enthusiasm for people to invest in real estate? There's a need for property. There was something like 6,000 people coming from the East Coast, be it FIFO workers and whatever, coming to live in WA. Now, I don't know whether that's weekly, monthly, whatever, but and we're not encouraging. Are we, by doing something like that? That's discouraging an opportunity.
Yeah. Well, it's not just discouraging it; it's making it impossible. Because where are we going to put these people? And typically, people like there's this it's completely contradictory. And I don't know if the state government's thought this through. I think they've done some awesome things over the last 6 months in thinking things through. But I think that if they correctly went to the industry bodies that this actually affects and listened to what they said, it's an absolute no-brainer that this decision that they've now made to extend the emergency period in its current form for the next 6 months is absolute lunacy, which is what you said before. So, because if they'd spoken to the industry bodies, and I'm talking about REWA, I'm talking about Urban Development Institute, even the Chamber of Commerce, if you're speaking to any of these guys, number one, do we need an extension of any emergency period? But if we do, surely it doesn't need to be as stringent as what it does, and as what it was, and as blanket approach to the entire real estate market or the entire rental market as what it has been over the last 6 months. The last policy was obviously made in haste with a level of urgency, and it had to be that way. And it was a very good reaction from a national level and also a state level. But now we've had time to think things through. Now we've had time to look at how our economy has reacted over the last 6 months. And there has been, and we've discussed it a lot over the last 3 weeks, TV, in terms of what's going to happen post 29th of September. And there hasn't been absolute boo at all in the media or from the state government as to what's going to happen. So, but 48 hours ago, out of nowhere came this decision. There was no consultation with those industry bodies that I mentioned, and it seems like the state government had forgotten about it. I really think they probably had forgotten about it. They didn't talk to anyone, or that they probably should have, in terms of seeking some advice as to what do the industry bodies feel should happen. And it looks like they've made a snap decision, and the easiest decision is, no worries, let's just whack a 6-month extension on it. Absolute craziness, and completely contradicts their policy of what they're trying to do, of encouraging a migration from the east to the west to support where our economy is going and where our mining economy is going. Like, there is literally not going to be anywhere for them to put, and this is just one angle, but there's literally not anywhere for them to put these people that they're trying to bring across. If they were talking about offering them rental incentives, relocation costs and all that sort of stuff, we've got the lowest vacancy rate in WA that we have had any time in the last 20 years. Where do they think they're going to be putting these people if they don't buy them houses?
Yep.
Like, there's just nowhere for them to go.
Yeah, and that's the thing that seems to be the problem. I mean, we as you know,
that's only one problem, though, mate. Honestly, that's only one problem, because it completely conflicts with the migration policy that the government is looking to put in place to stimulate migration to WA for the purposes of our economy. But another angle, what you mentioned before, is those people that rely on rental income as a source of their retirement funding. They've been hurting a lot over the last 6 months, and give renters that are struggling, and also those ones that slip through that aren't really struggling but are using the system. And I'm not saying there's a lot of them, but I know of some, and so there's people that are using the system. Yeah, there's people that are using the system to the disadvantage of the landlords. And where is the support for the landlords? So, and that's only a second angle. There's a third, fourth, fifth angle that I know about, that this just a blanket extension of that emergency period, when there is no emergency going on in WA at the moment. None at all. To just extend a 6-month blanket policy is ridiculous. I'm shocked, and I probably get more fired up about the decision the more I think and talk about it, because it is craziness.
Yeah, and I didn't think we were going to have an Oscars rant today, but I think we've gone close. But
sorry.
I'm with you. I totally agree, and I'm not involved in the rental market in a business sense, but certainly as an investor I am, and I've certainly had some experience that disappoints me, in my opinion. And you're sort of tippy-toeing around, because the fact that I don't deny that I've got a couple of tenants who have been exceptional, but I feel as though you've got to tippy-toe around because of this moratorium that you find is just doesn't gel. It does not make sense. It doesn't make business sense. It doesn't make an economical sense, and it certainly doesn't make sense in the fact that, yes, there's a COVID issue, but of course, you know, my point when I say you're talking to people from the East Coast, and I've listened to different podcasts, and I've listened to different commentary. People over there, I mean, there's one comment made to me by some Victorians, was the fact that they feel that what's going on there compared to what we've got here, they feel that they are going to take, remembering that the concern is what the plan is for, and we're probably off the track a bit here, but the concern about what the plan is for business and the economy in the future in Victoria, that's going to have an impact down the line with regard to WA and other states at some point in time. It's going to have to be. But to see what they're experiencing, and yet what we're putting in place here when it comes to a rental moratorium, that's just you're comparing apples and oranges.
So even going back to my Facebook rant that you brought up last week about if there is going to be, and don't forget, this is a moratorium not on rentals, it's a moratorium on evictions. So it protects tenants who are in financial difficulty as a result of COVID, that they are not going to lose the roof over their head. But my point last week in my little social media rant was, that's fine, but what about the owners of the properties that don't have any moratorium preventing them from losing their homes when they can't pay the mortgages? So far, to the point that right now, with the way that the moratorium exists, if a renter can't pay their rent due to COVID-related reasons and therefore financial distress, they've got a protection that they're not going to lose the roof over their head. But if the owner can't make their mortgage repayments because they're not getting enough rent for the property, there's no moratorium. There's no moratorium preventing them losing their properties. And further to that, when the bank comes in to take repossession of the house, because landlords have not been able to make their mortgage repayments, the bank themselves cannot kick the tenants out because there's a moratorium preventing the eviction. So even the banks who are owed the money that will ultimately take possession from a landlord when they're not able to make their mortgage repayments, the bank themselves can't do anything. So there's just no even scale here. And I agree that tenants deserve the right to have a roof over their head, but they deserve to have the same right as everyone else, and it's not an even playing field. That's my rant.
Can I have one extension to that when you talk about the banks, which is one avenue or one angle that I didn't really think about. There's the other scenario then is that, so then Oscar de Souza has got a tenant and his repayments then become default. The bank then repossesses the property. Good luck having a mortgagee sale when you can't move the tenant out and getting a buyer to buy a property. You're going, well, why is Tony Bonner going to buy that property of Oscar de Souza's? Because I'm not going to get any income from it. Hello?
Totally, mate. Yeah. So that's point 3, 4, 5, 6 of why this is not a good idea. Or rather, it's not that it's not a good idea. That's very diplomatic of me. This is a really bad idea. It clearly hasn't been thought through. I speculated with my real estate colleagues over the last month as to what's going to happen come the 29th of September, and everyone thought that the policy will either get extended or get extended in some form. Not many people thought that it would go entirely, and this is going back a month ago anyway. But I was definitely saying, no, look, I think there'll be some sort of extension, but it will be a refined extension so that only the people like probably that 2% of the rental market that actually need some assistance here, because of the 180,000 rental properties that real estate agents look after, it's only 2% of those that still have a problem today that are COVID affected, and therefore they need some sort of protection. But why would you apply a policy over the other 98% of the rental properties that are out there in WA? It just doesn't make any sense. And then the other point, I'm going to shut up in a second, but the other point being, you mentioned, so what happens on the 29th of March next year? Either the policy gets re-extended, or those people that have been in struggle town, legitimately or otherwise, what's going to happen? Are they going to pay back the money? Are they going to get evicted, which they've been prevented from doing under normal economic conditions? What's going to happen to those guys? And what does the social policy look like that the government is going to be faced with when they then turn off the tap and there's these number of tenants that are going to, like, you know, if the government tries to just say, no worries, now a normal eviction laws apply, how is that going to look for the government when they're meant to be there protecting the people? So it's one hell of a mess, mate, and I doubt very much that we'll see the next months, as per the government's call in the last 48 hours, Do I actually think that's what's going to happen over the next 6 months? No, I don't think so. I think they'll actually, because of consultation with the correct industry bodies, I think they'll actually go through and review their decision that they've made, and we'll see a change again, further change, sometime in the next month, because right now it's just creating more problems.
Yep. Mate, I just quickly, while we're on that, our good friend and our regular one, Dean Stonehouse.
We have no friends.
Yeah, I do. Well, okay, I had to buy it, but he actually took me out for lunch the other day. I caught up with him while I was in Perth, which was good to see, and we had a great little chat and a bite to eat. So unfortunately, you couldn't make it. Otherwise, you could have come along with us. But it was good.
I must have missed the invite. Is that what it was? I missed the invite.
That's it. Yeah, he actually gave it to me, and I forgot to send it on. He just made mentions. Dino made mention with regard to what we've been talking about and the rental issue or rental policy. Is the state government worried that an increase in evictions would place additional pressure on state housing demand? Well, that's a good. I suppose it's a fair point, but the question is, well, let someone tell us what is going on. You know what I mean? I don't think they've explained their reasoning at all.
I don't think there has been, mate. I literally think it was a one-line announcement, and I've seen what the announcement is. And there's some sort of attempt to justify it after that, but no, it's a one-line announcement saying there has been an extension to the 28th, or I think it's the 29th of March, what year are we in? 2021. Yeah. But is that a problem? I don't really think that they've given it the thought to try and work out how this is going to affect social housing and their ability to house these tenants. But even if they have, does it not actually create an opportunity for redirecting social housing and increasing if necessary, increasing the supply, or, because that was something, homelessness isn't a new topic either. So it's something that should have been on their radar anyway. So could that not actually be a bit of a stimulation for them supplying more social housing, and that will improve the construction and employment industries? So is that an opportunity?
Yeah, true. Good point. And Dino made the comment here as well. He said, and Dean, for those that Dino's a qualified in the finance game, and in fact has got his own finance broking business, who was a guest with us 2 or 3 weeks ago. But his observation is that he's anticipating that rental defaults may increase, more so because due to JobKeeper and is phased out and JobSeeker is reduced. Of course, that's been extended as well. So at the moment, but again, you read the papers today, you read the papers yesterday, you read the stuff in WA, you talk to people. I've got clients. I had a client meeting with a client yesterday. They're putting stuff together, and her situation. She's in the market gardening business, and and I've talked to many a person that, particularly in the agricultural fields, but you talk to hospitality, you read articles about hospitality. There's an article in the paper yesterday, hospitality. But we've created an environment at the moment. I know there's a COVID, but in WA here, we are lucky, and yet we've got a job seeker and job keeper packages around at the moment. And I don't deny there are some industries and some businesses that are still doing it damn tough. So let's not kid ourselves that everyone's on easy street. But the fact being it's really most concerning that you talk to, as I said, talk to my friend yesterday, my client yesterday, I talked to others, you read in the papers, people are living, and there was an article about everyone going up on holidays to Exmouth and whatever because of their job seeker payment. People are living it up at the nightclubs at Northbridge because of job seeker payments. So we're no one's interested in getting a job because they're getting these payments. Now, if we're getting a job seeker payment and we're getting we're suggesting we can't afford to pay rent, we're not really creating the ideal environment for down the track, are we?
No, but and then the other thing to do with that as well is that the JobKeeper, JobSeeker obviously was at the same time that this moratorium on evictions came in. That's when JobKeeper and JobSeeker took form as well, and that was a very necessary government initiative that had to be put in place. But even that was coming to a close at the end of this month. And from the 1st of October, the JobKeeper JobSeeker looks different because they've reviewed it. They've had 6 months of it. We've now got a different world. So they've worked out, how do we make this serve its purpose better? How do we make it fairer? What are we going to do in terms of the changes of reporting to make sure that the intention behind that policy and those payments is actually achieved, and it's going to the right people and it's not going to the wrong people. So why didn't they do that with the moratorium on evictions? Like, wouldn't you just review the moratorium and say, that's cool, guys, let's just make sure that 98% of renters that have now recovered and don't need this financial assistance or don't need this moratorium, why don't we say that's cool, they don't need it because they just don't need it. And for the 2% that are really struggling, that are in those industries that are not doing well and all that, why don't we just have a separate policy for them? Or they need to justify, why didn't, instead of just saying, geez, guys, it looks like we've forgotten about this. We've got 2 weeks to go till this policy expires. Why don't we extend it for 6 months?
Yep.
Bad idea.
Okay.
Honestly, it's
I'm going to wind you up. You up. What I want to know, we're looking, there's thousands of people out there wanting to know, waiting for Oscar's stats. What's the story with the week been? Got any info?
Yeah. Surprisingly, so the last, in terms of what's been happening through Perth, over the last month or so, we've seen a very slight drop in the volume both of sales and also rental properties. But as I mentioned as well, I don't think that drop is a result of sting coming out of the market and there not being the buyers and the renters around. I think that's because the supply on both the sales side and also the rental side is just drying up. And statistically, that's absolutely what we've seen. That said, we've actually seen a spike in the number of properties that have sold in Perth metropolitan area just over the last week. So in the last week, 916 sales. So we always say in a normal market, it's 500 to 600 sales a week. That includes houses, units, and land. But we've certainly experienced numbers in the 800, 900, and even a bit over 1,000 properties at its peak, going back 2 months. But yeah, so 916 sales, of which 596 of those were houses just in the last week. 4 weeks ago, we were at 769 properties sold. 12 months ago, we were back in our normal, healthy, stable market conditions, and that was 520 sales, as compared to 916 in this last week. Listings are staying stabilised at just over 10,000 listings through the Perth metropolitan area, and 12 months ago it was 14,000 listings. So 14,000 listings, it was starting to tighten up a little bit. At 10,000, we're really tight on stock through the Perth metropolitan area. Rental market, 835 properties leased just over the course of the last 7 days. 12 months ago, that was 966 properties. So again, a normal market in the Perth metro area is 900 to 1,000 properties rented each week. So we've leased 835 in the last 7 days. But again, that's not because there's not renters around. That's because we've just got a far lower supply and not enough properties coming onto the market. Our supply at the moment is just over 3,000 properties through the Perth metropolitan area. 12 months ago, in terms of in contrast, 6,617 properties 12 months ago. So in the last 12 months, it's dropped by more than 50%. And we're talking about migrating people over to come and live and work in WA. And the Geraldton stat as well, which just continues to go further south. Number of properties, if you're in Geraldton or you're looking to move to Geraldton and you're looking for a rental property, there's under 90 properties available, including units, including houses. There's under 90 properties through the whole of Geraldton. So you need to move quickly because you're going to be up against competition if you're looking for a rental in Geraldton. phenomenal number. It used to be over 400 properties, which was way too many, but now it's under 90. So tough going out there in the Geraldton Midwest rental market.
Yeah, and we're going to get Henry Van Til we had on a couple of months ago now, and I think it was just not long after we sort of came out of our little WA lockdown period with the COVID issue, and we sort of came out of that world of the unknown. So I've contacted Henry, and he's keen to come back on because I'd like to get his thoughts. Henry's at Ray White here in Geraldton, and they've got a pretty big market. So sort of like to get him on again, which he's acknowledged he will do, because just to get his perspective on what has been going on since we last spoke, but also he's got a really good knowledge of what's going on both in the rental market and the property market. So he's all good to go. So we'll let you know when we've got Henry on, and I know we've said this more than once, but we're trying to follow up with a few people to try and get not just definitely we'll get someone Perth, but we're trying to get a couple of regions as well, so we're not sort of too much one-dimensional, but we'll keep you informed with that.
I can't connect to the Wi-Fi network. You might want to check the connection settings.
Guess who that is?
Is that Siri?
By the way, the mic's off.
That's Siri.
That's hilarious, TV. That is brilliant.
She's just had a little hissy fit. Why don't
you ask her what she thinks of the extension of the emergency period?
Well, I've just turned it off. We'll have to try that now.
Hey, that's shed a new light on in terms of having a guest on the show.
I know. I should ask her, shouldn't I? Should I connect it back on and ask her? We'll do that in a minute. Okay. The other thing being is, and I know we've been talking about renting. That was funny. I know we've been talking about renting, but in the current climate, and we've probably answered this to a point, but rent versus buying, what are your thoughts on that?
I reckon you don't have much in the way of choice. In terms of buying, it's a very, very good market for owner-occupiers at the moment because interest rates are ridiculously low. You can get an interest rate under 2% or around 2%, so that is ridiculously cheap money. From an investment point of view, it's also good because money, again, is cheap, and we know that the rental market is showing very good returns as well. But then from a renter's point of view, it's tough going out there at the moment because the supply is so low. So the rental properties are starting to get a bit more expensive and there's a shorter supply. That said, you're making a shorter term commitment when you're renting a property, and that allows you the time to see what's going to transpire in our economy and real estate market over the next 12 months, because there's no question we're going into a very unstable or unpredictable 12-month economic period over 2021, where we're going to see what COVID really has done to our economy on a national level. So I just don't think there's any wrong answers with that. I think no matter what, you've got to make a good lifestyle decision for yourself. Buying means that you're making more of a longer term commitment. Renting is shorter term, but you're not going to be, making an investment in anything and hedging your bets. So you can go either way, but again, supply in both markets is on the low side. So you need to make a decision, and once your decision's made, you do need to move quickly.
And there has been, you're talking about buying, but of course, when you look at the selling, there's been some little antidotes around. And when I say antidotes, not just antidotes, but live scenarios where people have, more particularly in the city, that I've noted at this point, but where the prices have been sort of a little bit better than they were even asking for. So, and I also saw an article the other day, funny how we're talking about options last week on our show, and see where the demand and the volume attending auctions has gone quite increased dramatically. So there's people out there. And did I not read something as well where they had to, because of social distancing, they had to restrict the number of people that could go into the home open. They had to let them go through in sort of small groups. 50 odd people rocked up, I think, to one place. I think it was I read somewhere. So if you are going to be buying, which is the next question, if you are out there, and weekends is normally the time when people get out and about, and again, we're lucky in WA that we're able to do this. People are going to home opens, etc. What, in your opinion, with your background and your thoughts, what do you think a buyer, particularly maybe a first home buyer, or any buyer for that matter, but a first home buyer, if you're out there looking to buy a property, what are you looking for when you go out there and you do a property inspection, rather than say, oh, that's a nice bedroom?
Yeah. Well, knowledge, like whatever you can do. There's so even before you get to the property these days, TB, there's a lot of knowledge you can get about the property just by typing the property address into your Google search bar, and so many different things will come up, whether it'll be a rental vacancy history, a selling history of what's happened over the last 20 years with that property. You'll find detail of what's going on in and around the area so far as infrastructure or community projects. So just arm yourself with a whole lot of knowledge about everything that you can, and everything that I just mentioned to you is absolutely free. So that's the first thing. When you do actually go to the property itself, you need to know why you're there. Are you there for investment, or are you there for your own personal lifestyle? Is it going to be your own home? So have a bit of a clear path as to what purpose are you there for. And look, we've spoken about it before as well. There's many people around, people like Tony Viner, people like Dean Stonehouse. There's lots of independent advice around, where if you're going to get some good independent advice, sure, you're going to need to spend a little bit of money on that. But the money that you spend on dealing with someone that is experienced and independent, the whole idea is that ultimately that will save you money in the future. So if it's not going to save you money in the future, there's probably no value add. So there's no point doing it. So make sure that you talk to someone that is, number one, experienced, but number two, is independent, and make sure they're going to add value to your journey. So it's worth investing the time and a little bit of money in doing that.
And the other thing being is, the other thing with that, add on to that, is that, and again, I've had inquiry, and don't forget, we're not necessarily, people that watch us or listen to us are not necessarily all from WA, and those, like as I said, a couple of Victorian people have contacted me just in the last 48 hours, sight unseen. Suddenly, not aware. For example, one was inquiring about a property here in Geraldton, and had no idea or any perspective whatsoever of the suburb, no idea where the locality was in relation to what she wanted, no idea the fact that it wasn't near the ocean. Like Geraldton, for example, most of the suburbs are near the ocean, but near the ocean and being close to the ocean are two different animals. And you can get ocean views, as you know, OD, in Geraldton, but you could be 20 k's out of town because of the elevation. So you need to be careful where you're buying and be conscious of it. And so that information you either need to inquire with your real estate agent, or alternatively someone independent, e.g. TV, or wherever it may be. And I think the other thing being, if you're buying a property, it's not just when you're looking for a property and you're going to a house inspection, but the other thing being conscious of what the processes are. And I refer more particularly to, again, across the country buyer, because the processes here in WA are so different. There is no cooling off period, for example, so, like there is over the East Coast. So you need to, I would strongly recommend that you get someone who can provide, you can bounce off, if you like, and there's there to give you to cover your back, if you like, for want of a better way. I think that's really important for when you're buying a property. So it's not just those in WA who are going to home opens, but there's those that are identifying a property and taking interest in buying a property here in WA. But before you do, sight unseen, then make sure, similar to what you're doing, do some Googling, but also if you can get in contact with someone that you can create a relationship with and know that they're going to cover your back, that's going to be super important as well.
Yeah, look, and it just depends on how far you want to go. You can just stop at Google searches, and you'll get a lot of information from that. You can employ someone like yourself, TV, or of any of the other names that we've mentioned before, and that could be just on a bit of an hourly rate. And what they're buying there is an hourly rate for your experience that you've had over 40 years, and that's obviously going to be worth its weight in gold. And then you can keep going and employ someone such as a buyer's agent that will handle the entire process for you. So an Eastern States buyer, and buyer agents are pretty popular in the Eastern States. They're starting to be more popular here in WA as well. But a buyer agent will understand your motivations, your budget, your finance capabilities, and they'll do all of the legwork for you. And what I mean by that is, they'll source properties, they'll conduct inspections, they'll conduct negotiations, they'll organise all your due diligence, they'll see the property through to settlement. Yes, you need to pay them a fee for that, but ultimately, again, that any fee that you pay to a consultant or to a professional, it needs to add value to what you're doing. So you can either see it just as an expense or a fee, or you can actually see it as an investment to make sure that your bigger investment purchase is going to do what you need it to do for you. So you get, like anything, you get what you pay for, and it's worth considering which one of those methods suits you best.
Yep, and I agree. So, and it's certainly, I suppose also you need to identify, and which you've already touched on, but you need to be careful too that you're buying something that's going to suit your lifestyle and what you're looking for. And that was again one of the commentaries that I had with one of my people that inquired with me, sort of saying, well, hang on, if you're looking for that, that's not the right suburb or not the right locality that you're looking for. So there are a whole those range of things, but I think at the end of the day, it's important, as you just said, if you get a buyer's agent or you get an independent consultant who can assist you, particularly if you're someone who's watching us and you're not a WA person. I mean, not to suggest that can't happen with WA people, it certainly can. But for those of the East Coast at the moment who are restricted but have an interest in buying in WA, then it's pretty important that you've got someone that's holding your hand, if you like, through the process. Hey, the other thing I was going to say is that, and this is a very off-the-cuff sort of question, I suppose, but something I was thinking about during the week, is there a best time of the year to list your property for sale? I mean, is there a theory behind that as far as, when do you list or you decide you want to sell your property for whatever reason? Is there sort of a theory behind that as far as when's the best time to do that?
Yeah, there is. I mean, all real estate agents will sell whenever the time is right for you. That's what they tell their sellers, and that by and large is true. But the spring selling season is called the spring selling season for a reason, and there's almost nothing like it compared to any other time of the year. So that is obviously after winter. That's when all the trees are looking all green and everything is looking green and picture perfect. And also on the back of winter being a bit slower because of the weather, so people don't get out as much. And then there's always school holidays and things like that thrown in there. There's the odd COVID pandemic as well that gets thrown in there as well. So, so the spring selling season is definitely, the signature season of the year. It's certainly here in WA. So that basically is the time, and it happens to be now. Obviously, that's absolutely the time. But all you need to do is just look outside and you look at the weather, and you normally look at the surrounds of whatever environment that you're in or whatever suburb you're in, and it's a great time to be alive and to be outdoors. And because people feel a bit more positive and a bit happier because of what's going on. Weather-wise, it actually has a bit of impact on their mindset when they're making property purchases. So the spring selling season is a great time.
Hey, the other thing with going back a little bit, but I think Dean Stonehouse is trying to sort of, I think he's trying to come on as an extra co-host, mate. He just said he's just given us a little contribution. Create a list of must-have in the proposed property: location of amenities, transport, work, number of rooms, pool, no pool, big garden and outdoors entertaining area because you like being outside, what matches your lifestyle. I mean, he's just all over it, isn't he? He's all over it.
He needs to be on here, mate. I mean, I don't know. I mean, can you afford him? Can you afford him to? Because I know what you're paying me. So can you afford to get him on the show?
Oh, no. Lunch is what's going to happen. Yeah, no.
I'm pretty sure I think you'd, to be the salary cap, mate. You got a salary cap issue there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's limited at the moment. We're trying to negotiate something big. We'll let you know. I was going to have a TV rant, but I think we've done enough ranting for today. We'll keep that for another day. But one thing that I didn't make mention, and I wrote down as a note during the week, there was an article in the paper, and gets back to what we're talking about, and probably a little bit of a negative to what we're just talking about, buying property, etc. But there was an article in the paper making reference that the home buyers struggling to pay their mortgages here in WA, the number one suburb in Australia is Byford.
In Australia?
Yeah, I found that quite intriguing. I sort of wondered why, and that would be the suburb that I would have picked in that field. But yeah, it was just a very interesting stat. And I was when we get a real estate person on, we'll leave you alone in that sphere. But we might just keep that little reference and just see what the thoughts are on a real estate perspective. But yeah, it was just a very interesting stat. The other thing that I wanted to make mention about, and we'll wind up shortly, there was an article in the paper today again where and it was only very small, but the big four banks are still sort of promoting the fact that they're expecting house prices countrywide to fall by at least 10% in the next 12 months. They expected double-digit falls in property prices over the next year, somewhere between 10 and 15% reduction mainly in the large cities, and that was coming from both the National Bank and Westpac execs.
Yeah,
I found that quite intriguing.
I think when they say the large cities, they're talking about Melbourne and Sydney. Like, so I don't know why they even say the large cities. Like, they're talking about Melbourne and Sydney. They're not talking about Perth. They're not talking about Brisbane or Adelaide. So they may as well just say it.
Yep.
I'd bet anything. I'd bet so long as there's not going to be a major second wave through WA, and that doesn't last for 12 months or even 6 months. So long as that doesn't happen in WA, I'd bet everything else that I have, TV, that we're not going to see a house price drop of between 10 and 15% in WA. I'd come close to betting everything else that I do have to say that we'll see a 5 to 10% increase in house prices in WA if everything that is currently happening continues and there is no major disruption from a second wave of COVID. I'd bet everything that I have, between 5 and 10% over the next 12 months. The people that are writing those sorts of one-liners and articles, as we've discussed before, and even when the banks look at it, and if the banks themselves are making those representations, they might be talking about Australia as a whole. But again, it's that blanket approach where so much of the population, so much of the housing is centred around New South Wales and Victoria that actually dominates any average that gets put out. But if you took those out of the equation and if you looked at it state by state, you'd see a very, very different story.
I'm with you. I totally agree with you. It's just, as I said, we're not going to shy away from some of these articles that we read, and I think it's interesting to talk and as we keep saying, this is our opinion. There's no, it's only an opinion. We love talking about it, as people would know, and we love discussing things about property. And the focus is on WA. And that's why we do what we do. It is deliberately set up to discuss matters property WA, and because there is so much commentary that goes around, you can get caught up with the fact that, hang on, that's not actually about Perth, or that's not about Geraldton, or that's not about Albany. That's actually about Sydney or Melbourne or regional Victoria or regional New South Wales. But we need to be careful. That's why we do what we do. Man?
Quick one. The question that you've got on the screen there for your mate Dean Stonehouse. What would you look for when buying a property? If I was buying a property, I'd be looking to see if Dean Stonehouse is at the property or in the front yard. He's a bag of information. So if I'm sitting there buying a property going, gee, what do? I'd be saying, hey, is Dean Stonehouse here? Yeah,
I'm with you. Yep, I'm just waiting for a comment. Hey, I'm just going to have a bit of a shout out. I had a lovely day yesterday, a busy day. But I rocked up into my office yesterday, and there was this little red orangey type envelope, and I opened that envelope, and it was a thank you card from a client, and it was pretty special. And the words within that were very special. It was a client, a friend that I had helped out with. They were building, all excited that his plans have been approved. It was most appreciative that I sort of gave him, I'm not suggesting I'm a building expert, but wanted me to give him a little bit of advice and thoughts on what he was doing. But it just goes to show how special some people can be. But this thank you card, but inside that thank you card was also a gift, which was way beyond my thoughts, let alone expectations. Well, I had no expectations, but I'd just like to thank that person. I will refer to him as Harrison, but it was a pretty special. And when you get something like that, mate, it just realises how much we enjoy doing what we do. It's not all about money, but when you put a smile on someone's face, it makes you feel pretty good. And you get a thank you card for it. And the words within that card just goes to show what a difference you can make to some people with something very simple, very simple.
That's really cool, mate. It's really cool because these days, normally after you've done what you do with your time day to day, normally you'll see a customer survey pop up. Sometimes you might get a text message or a thank you standard letter email or whatever. But the thought that goes into a handwritten card, the gesture itself, and any gift or payment, it's the way that the world used to work, going back 20 years ago. And it's good to see that some of that older style appreciation still exists. So that's great that it makes you feel $1 million.
Yeah, I just thought I'd tell you a good story. The other good story I've got is that, and I meant to do this mention, but we allowed Father's Day to be involved. But you may recall a couple of years ago or so, before I had my little period there, where things weren't going quite right, but I did the Polished Man. Remember when I did the Polished Man? Were you around then? So Polished Man is all about. It's not a very well-known charity, if you like, in WA, but Polished Man is a worldwide thing. 1 billion children have experienced violence in the last year alone, which is half the world's children. Now, I've got 5 grandchildren, and I think at one stage the stat was 1 in 5 get sexually or physically abused. Now, I've got 5 grandchildren who I love dearly, so I can assure you that's not happening with those 5. So there's one somewhere else in another 5 that suddenly becomes 2 out of 5. So come the 1st of October, I'm painting one of my nails, and I'll get someone to do that. But I'll be doing a little fundraiser over the month of October with regard to that, and we'll mention. But Polished Man, if you're not aware of it, if you want to get on board, it's a great little cause, particularly when it comes to children. So we'll Property Avenue WA will be supporting Polished Man as far as that's concerned. We'll find some money to raise a little bit of an awareness as far as something's really important. Hey, listen, we're coming to near the end. An if question, and it's probably very much along topical based on what we've been saying. Have you got any more to say other than what we've already done?
As if I'd have any more to say.
I was going to ask Siri, but I might get Siri on later. Hey, if you were the sole decision maker, would you accept that COVID is a virus we just need to adapt and learn to live with? And if that was the case, would you then decide to open the borders and allow business to get back on track, both on the East Coast and the WA Coast? So you're not the WA decision maker. You are the sole decision maker. You overrule everybody.
Did you say anything about vaccine in your little spiel then?
No, because I don't believe, I'm not convinced I'm not convinced with regard to vaccine. I'm working on the base that I think that's a long way away. And there's been some very interesting statistics with regard to vaccines, be it for the flu, be it whatever. I'm not an anti-vax person, by the way. I know there's plenty that are. But I'm just talking about the fact that where we are at the moment and what's going on in this world, if you're the sole decision maker, I accept what's going on here in WA and I accept what's going on and I have no complaints about it. But my point being is, what if?
Yeah. What if I was the sole decision maker? So would I open the borders or would I keep them shut? Is that what you're asking me?
Well, not only would you open the borders, like the situation with Victoria, which is complete lockdown, right? So there's businesses just folding one after the other. I'm not convinced. I know we've got the rental moratoriums and I know we've got JobKeeper and I know we've got jobs here, but my concern is, can we keep doing this? Can we, as an economy, as an Australian economy, as a world economy, are we going to have to learn to adapt to this in some way, shape or form? I don't know. There's no right or wrong. It's just something that has been playing on my mind these last few days.
So I reckon that if we could replicate what we have done in WA across our country and I guess across the world, that there is a very good chance that obviously it stops community spread, but would it actually just die off and go away? And therefore, after that's happened, then we deal with the economic result of that. Yeah, it would be something that I would be in favour of. Yes.
Yep.
Did you expect that I was going to say that?
I thought about it a lot during the week. And I sort of feel as though it's something that going, you know what, we're probably getting to a point at some stage, like it or not, we're just going to have to make a decision. And it's going to be a hard decision, but we probably need to work out how we're going to go about this, because it ain't going to go away and it's not going to go away in a hurry. Vaccine's not going to be an immediate fix. I mean, vaccine come flus doesn't automatically, I mean, I'm not a medical expert, but the fact is that we've had various diseases and viruses throughout our history. Is it getting to a point where we may need to decide, someone's going to have to make a decision that's saying, you know what, we're going to have to adapt and we're going to have to live with this?
Yeah, look, it is such a debatable topic, and I've seen so much on social media, and I've spoken about it with a few people. And then there's always the other side that just say, mate, you know, where are all these cases? Is it even, you know, is it really there? So, mate, I don't know. Just my view. You asked for my view, and I reckon that we've been very fortunate in WA to have the amount of cases that we've got and the casualties that we've got. So if that could be replicated nationwide, and therefore that same model throughout the world, and then you find a way to absorb the economic pain, then yeah, I think it should be considered.
Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. As always, I always enjoy catching up. I know we're that damn busy, this is the only time we do catch up. But go and have some rest, mate. Enjoy those ladies of yours, and have a fabulous weekend, mate. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome.
Been a really good discussion. I've enjoyed every bit of it. Just quickly, before I do wind up, if you've got a friend or anybody out there with regard to real estate, this is something that we really enjoy doing. If you've got questions, you've got anything associated with property, it's not just about all renting and buying and selling, please pass it on. Let people know that we exist. We've now got our own Property Avenue WA Facebook page. Send us your questions, anything you've got, and then OD and I will look at them. We'll either use them in our topics the following week, or we'll send you an email or whatever the case may be. But we're doing it for a reason. We're doing it because we love doing it, but we're also trying to use our knowledge and get people that in various fields and professions to help us along this line. So pass it on, get it out there. We love doing it. Take care, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Cheers for now.